this colleague, he's like, hey Greg, where are we staying? And I'll say, oh, we're staying at Courtyard Hotel. And he's like, well, is that near a YMCA? And I'm like, why? You know, he goes, well, I gotta swim. And I'm like, yeah, Courtyard has a pool. I mean, it's about as big as that table. You know, he's like, no, Greg, I gotta do like laps. And I'm like, really? You know, why? Well, I'm training for this triathlon. He can't see his life without this behavioral modification. Now, me, on the other hand, it's like, I get back to the hotel, I'm like, all right, I am spent. I mean, I've given all I got to bending today. I'm tired, you know. I'm like, you know, I'll lay down in the bed, watch TV, and be a couch potato. I can't see my life with that behavioral modification. Point is, you know, there is some retraining that's going to happen, you know. But the catch is, what got us here needs to be changed, you know, to get us the result we're looking for. Will that come easy? The answer is no. Just like anything, it requires us to change behaviors. Whether that's dieting, I know we have a couple smokers, if you've ever tried smoking, you know, all these things don't come easy, but that's this behavioral modification we're looking for. What about this table? What was your one aha moment?
When problems arise, we need to support others instead of micromanaging.
Gotcha. When you say micromanage, I mean, not give me an example like something that happened, but how do we avoid that? I mean, because it's like the form of putting the tool belt on.
Right.
How do we get away from that?
Well, this one's been discussed, so probably this one.
I'll give you a good for instance. When it comes to solving problems, and I had a client over in Mississippi that had this problem. People would come in, it was a mechanical contractor, people would come into the boss and say, you know, hey boss, I'm struggling with, you know, the customer, what should I do? And what would the president do? He'd tell them exactly what to do. He'd go, hey Ray, you know, did you try calling him, you know? Oh no, I'll call him, that's a good idea, thanks. Folks, most people, you included, when you go to one of your leaders, you know, there's the off chance that you are looking for direction. A lot of you know what the answer is. You're looking for affirmation. That's the key word here. And, you know, I can understand if you're green as the day is long and you're a newbie and you don't know anything and you're ignorant. That ignorance not a bad word. It just means you don't know what you don't know. So that's okay. You know, that's a different story. But most of you guys have seen this thing before. You're looking for that affirmation. So spin that around, and this is where my friend in Mississippi learned. That person will come, hey boss, I'm having trouble with my customer. What do you think we should do? That's what he would say now. And it was kind of pushing back. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, to answer his question, how our organization works is just like your skit on Saturday Night Live.
Move
Out of the
over.
way, move over. I can do it faster than you, better than you. I don't need you right now, but I'll call you when I need you to come back.
And that's got to change. That's got to change. And that's what I'm saying. What I should say to Randy is, what do you think we should do? Well, I think I should probably call the customer, maybe not send them an email. I need to maybe drive there and actually go, I think you're right. There you go. Me pushing you out of the way and solving it does nothing. It's the old adage, not to get all biblical on you, but you know, give a man a fish, feed him for the day. Teach the man to fish, feed him for life. That's what we're doing here. And we have got to fundamentally change. And trust me, this is not falling on deaf ears. If I don't sound like I didn't hear this before, I've heard it before. But my point is, they also heard this message, and they will continue to hear this message. Now, I'm going to play a little devil's advocate to you guys for a moment. When it comes to, you know, maybe not trusting, you know, why do you think that happens? Why do they push you out of the way? Why would anyone not delegate? And I'm not saying, give me, like, once again, why does Rice do it or Channing or anybody, but why would someone not delegate?
Previous experience.
Could be. And I'm not defending the behavior, but it's like, man, last time I delegated it, you pooped the bed, and unfortunately, I don't have that level of trust, so I have to do it myself. There's also the adage, which is a bad thing, the time it'll take me to train you to do it, I could have done it 10 times over. And that happens quite a bit. That's the bad thing. So the trust thing, we got to gain people's trust, and it's a two-way street. The delegating part and saying, well, I can do it quicker than you, that makes a very needy organization, and that's where we're always managing down a level. And that's not an effective way to operate. Last but not least, who's your spokesperson here?
Let's take a guess.
Darcy, you will lose your spokesperson privileges in the next round. How about that?
I'm good with that. So we are bringing to the table, how do you make accountability happen at all
Yes.
levels? Communication, define roles and responsibilities, and follow up throughout the project. Because my question, we keep throwing around the world, I'm going to hold you accountable, but how do we hold one another accountable really? You know, I can say that all day long, but, you know, Nick can say, hey, Darcy, you didn't do that, and I can go, shut up, I don't have time for you, and walk away, and then the accountability is gone. So
Right.
we were trying to get to the meat of it.
There's two examples that I'll give you of what I would call best practices that relates to this. One is a contractor very similar to you guys in New Orleans. They just built a new office building, and their office building, I think they may have bought out a Best Buy, because what they did was they put big screen TVs and monitors like we have over here all throughout their office. Now, a couple of them just have the news channel on, and it's like, you know, Bay News, no, that's what we have in Tampa, Bay News 9, it's just a feed that way. What they also have is the processes up on the board. So it has, here's the jobs with the people, and did we do pre-job planning? Like you guys said we need to evolve to? When was the date? Are we green or are we red? Exit strategy, closeout meetings. Are we up to date? And you might say, well, wait, do we want our customers? What if a customer came by and saw that? Well, guess what? It's called accountability. You know, and they also tell people the score, whether or not we're profitable or not profitable. I'm not saying they put out their income statement on the coffee table. They talk in percentages. So I personally think all information is good information, but I do know some people are reluctant to share. What I would say is you can say, hey, we're 10% of our way to our goal for this year. We're making 12%. You know, I mean, the point is, you can speak in percentages, but I want to know, I'm playing this game, am I winning the game? So are we doing the upstream? And now I can look and see, can I hold each other accountable? The other reason I tell you this is I work with a client in Canada that did this very same process, and all those things you hear about Canadians being really nice, this goes completely out the window when it comes to that. They shame their people.
Oh.
And they force rank them. So they have a conference room where they do all their training, all their meetings. The CEO also just sits in that room. So it's like kind of his mini office. Imagine if this was, you know, like Rice or Ted's office. But it's just because he doesn't want to be in an office. He likes the more open setting. But they come in, and on the board is this tally sheet that says, did you do the stuff you were supposed to do? And basically you can't run from this scoreboard. It's like you can't fake it. Not only that, they have their people on there. So like superintendents doing their look-aheads or their toolbox talks, daily reports, their forced ranks. So number 1 is the guy who's 100%. Number 15, let's just say you don't want to be number 15, you know, and they just shame people to death. Now, I'm okay with that because it's kind of like if you're doing your stuff that you're supposed to be doing, we should have a first place tie for first, shouldn't we? You know, and that's kind of what you want. And it evolved over time. I have a client in Nashville that's done something very similar, but they stopped the scoreboard at 10. Now they have 25 superintendents and foremen, but they kind of, if you're not in the top 10, let's just say we can have a 10th place tie for 10th. But, you know. Anyway, point is, that's how you hold people accountable. For instance, I can go every week and go into my scale in my bathroom and step on the scale and go, oh gosh. That's like when Alden came in before. I saw you had a stack of what looked like cost reports, and it kind of gave me agita when I saw it. The point is, when it comes to having those cost reports, that's downstream. That's me stepping on the scale. What we also need to be thinking about is the upstream side of this. What behavior modification has to happen? How do we make this transformation in pre-construction? We're going to have to hold ourselves accountable. It's not enough to say, well, we just need to do it, like Nike told us to. It doesn't work like that, folks. Just like Starbucks, they have a recipe card, they follow the recipe, and you know what? The voice of the customer will tell you that they're not happy, and then they make modifications based on that. That's how you hold people accountable. Last piece of this is I have a discussion here about a quote from a Mr. Winston Churchill we talked about before. Now, I'm not going to do my awful British accent because that would be insulting to British people. However, this quote here, we must learn from misfortune the means of future strength. What do you think that means?
Learn from your past.
Yeah, the old adage of, those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. I think he may have even said that as well. Same concept here. How does this relate to us? Why am I bringing this up? As a leadership management discussion, why is this important to Benning?
Because we've been around for 64 years.
You have. Let's get into the very brass tacks of tactics, for instance. Who's on the estimating side? Is it you and the three of you? So let me ask you, as the three members of that, if you don't have a process to get feedback on our cost in the field and where we're making, maybe not making money or making money on general conditions, does that hurt us in the long run? Yeah, I mean, we have to have some sort of history report to let us know how we're doing. I'll give you a good example. I've got a case here that'll probably illustrate it. We've got a contractor that has A units and B units. And this is self-performed, but just humor me. And we have A units and B units, and I estimate that it takes me 100 hours to do this for A and 100 hours to do B. That's my estimating process. Well, I assigned Darcy to go out and build this project that has A and B. You come in, you do A in 90 hours. How you feeling, Darcy?
So far, so good.
So far, so good. There's where the other shoe falls. B, Darcy spends 110 hours. Ooh, not so good. That's not your fault. It was just extra work you had to do. However, what do you think Darcy does when she reports her time?
Average it.
Why would you do that? Why would you average it out?
Because then it looks like I hit it on the nose.
You hit it for 100 and 100, just like we estimated it, right? So you kind of fudge the numbers a little bit, which is also what? Is that a breach of what?
Integrity.
The I word again. We got that one in there. However, so now estimating, you go back, by the way, you just got handed another project that's A's and B's. It's got A and B this time, and you go, hey, I remember Darcy just did a project like this. This is great. I'm going to go look at what? The cost report, right? And you look at it and you see 100, 100. You are a great estimator, aren't you? You're outstanding. Pat yourself on the back. So what do? A and B, except here's the catch, folks. This project has 100 units of A, but this time it has 1,000 units of B. So you go out and you go, well, it's a 1-for-1. This is perfect. I know how Darcy did. We're going to do 100 and 1,000. Except, what are we basing that on?
Different ratio.
It's not right. So let's put it like this. Let's send you out to run the project now. So you go out and run this project, and you do the first one in 90. You're just like Darcy. You go, woohoo, I did it. Hot damn. Except when we go out to do unit B, what's going to happen now? You're going to do it, unfortunately, get your clock cleaned, except to a 10 times factor now. You're going to do what? In 900 hours. 1,100 hours because we're misestimating it. The moral of the story is I come after you and go, man, you stink. You're not nearly the superintendent that Darcy is, and you're not doing well. The reality is there's a lack of communication, there's a lack of integrity, and this happens all the time. But what about our competitive position? Let's just say this world only had A's and B's. So there's only A projects. Will we get any A projects in the future? No. Why? Because we're too high every single time. We have proven we have a competitive advantage. We can do A's cheaper,
Right.
but we're putting them in at 100. Guess what? What project are we going to get a lot of? We're going to get a lot of B's.
B's and
We're going to get a ton of B's. Well, actually, we're only probably going to get 1 or 2 B's because we're going to go bankrupt pretty soon. Now, your projects are more than A's and B's. My basic, very rudimentary example is to prove a point that when we think about our organization and how we estimate in this feedback loop, this is exactly what we're talking about. But not just the things that we did well or the things we did poorly, those best practices that will allow us to provide the betting experience to our customers. Give them the best of what betting has every single time. And that's what we have to do. So while it says misfortune, it can also say the misfortune and good deeds, because what about the good strategy that we do, the good tactics? Lastly, in this section, we talk about the servant leader model. And I reflect back to Martin Luther King Jr.'s quote that I read you earlier, where he talked about being that servant. And I drew something up here. I know I'm out of the one camera angle, but a lot of org charts look very similar to this. You see, CEO or chairman and president and vice president, and it kind of goes down the line, and we have this beautiful organizational hierarchy. However, to me, this is the way the org chart should look. Notice who's at the top of the food chain. The field. As I said before, we all work for the field. I don't care. I will argue with Rice, Ted, till the cows come home on this one. That's where the money's made and lost. We are here to glorify the field and make them be successful. And yes, that includes trade partners, because once again, our product, our client, our customer, our projects are up here. Who touches them the most? It's that group of people. So our job, even though this isn't what I would call structurally correct, it's an inverted pyramid, or an inverted triangle. That's why the leadership needs to be so strong, because of what they're supporting here as an organization. This, to me, is where we need to evolve to. And I'm not going to read this whole phrase to you, but this concept of, is there a place for the servant leader model? Absolutely. In fact, I don't think it's, once again, transcends the construction industry. I don't care whether it's a sports team, whether it's Microsoft, whether it's the United States. Do we have to be servant leaders? Yes. We serve others. And this isn't about poor, rich, or anything along that lines. It's, once again, what is our goal here? To provide the best product to our customers and serve them effectively. So now we're going to talk a great deal about what we refer to as the peak leader model. And we're going to dissect. Because I said already, a lot of you would go, I don't know if I'm a good leader or not. I think I am, maybe I'm not. But what does that even mean? It's not easy to just simply say, great leader. What we're going to do is segment this into 8 very specific categories. And these are those 8 categories. You'll notice there's some similarity. So when we talked about SAM earlier today, setting direction, aligning others, and motivating others, you're going to see set directions in the far right corner up there. Thinking strategically, aligning resources, motivating and inspiring, focusing on others, execute and follow through. I think I heard that somewhere before. Lead from within and develop talent. Those are the 8 parameters that we're going to spend most of our time with. Now you'll notice this picture we have here. We have what's called the worldview right in the middle. And then around that are these personal values and attitudes. What this means, we talk about worldview, we're saying this is a set of beliefs or assumptions that we have about the world. As I said before, Republican or Democrat, conservative or liberal, whether you were from a single parent household or a family that had a bunch of kids, if you're deeply religious or not. These are all things that form the way you see the world. It's not right, it's not wrong, it's the way you see it. So when we think about changing your worldview and how it affects those behavior patterns, most people try to come at it from the outside in. Now, it's the old adage of some things filter through, some things hit and you kind of, it resonates with you. Others you go, that's not for me. It's not going to make that lasting change. On the other hand, when we talk about lasting change comes when we start to look through our own lens and we look through that worldview and you go, you know what? I'll give you a good for instance. The motivation and inspiration category. Some of you are a little bit older in the room, and I know you haven't said this, but other folks of your age demographic have maybe said this. These young people today, they just don't work hard. When I was coming up in the industry, I worked my tail off, and I had a boss that was a screamer and a yeller, and he would, basically whip me and blah, 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 and we would go out there and get things done, and, boy, if you yell at anyone today, they're just lazy and entitled, and that's what those millennials are. Have you ever heard that before? Guess what, folks? Welcome to Worldview. That's what we're talking about here. Now, this kind of goes back to the changing the 250 or changing me. The simple reality is, this generation, whether it's the millennials or the Generation Y or Generation Z, or if you're like me, Gen X, or I don't know if any of you are boomers or not, but the point is, it's almost like a rite of passage. You get to go, oh yeah, now I get to pick on the next group coming behind me. For instance, as a Gen Xer, we love picking on millennials. The 25-year-olds, and we go, oh, they just
36.
I know.
He hates it, but 37.
Yeah, I'm not in that group either.
He went 96, man.
Isn't it funny how we try to distance ourselves from it? However,
look, the reason why.
However, isn't this interesting though? Because when I was 25 years old, we were the Gen X group. We were that group. What did we hear? Who else is Gen X? Are you Gen X? We don't like to be managed. We're slackers. We heard
Worthless.
we're worthless. We rebel against authority. Well, guess what? The baby boomers said the same thing, or got told the same thing about them. Because who were the baby boomers? These were the hippie generation. And I'm not saying that as a slap in the face. I mean, that's when they were brought up. Raised on kind of rock and roll, the Woodstock generation, bucking authority. It's this cascade effect, and we look at the next generation as if there's something wrong with them. The thing is, they're just different because of their worldview. Simple fact is, there's a lot of things the millennials do, the boomers do, and either end of the spectrum, that is great, that I can learn from. And I think that's, once again, that change that we're looking for, that true inspiration. So, we're going to take this piece by piece, and I want you looking through, maybe once again, things that you do well, the ones that you don't do well, kind of think about why. That, once again, motivation, inspiration, is it because you're hung up in that, I just can't reach these young whippersnappers today. They just don't, you got to give them, everyone's a trophy, and everyone wins awards, and, it's like that Gaylord Fokker, from either, 14th place for walking or something. My point is, do you have that negative stigma attached to it? Well, is that affecting your leadership style because you think that whole generation is a bunch of entitled brats? Well, the reality is, no. There are people that are entitled, but I can find you baby boomers that are entitled. I can find you Gen Xers that are entitled. Change Greg first, and then you start to see true transformation. So we're going to start off with setting direction. So when we talk about a team or individual, I want you to think about, first of all, what does even setting direction mean? So as a leader, as a project, how would you set direction? What does that look like as an estimator, project manager, superintendent? We've got that all at one table. That being said, I'd like you to also provide an example. Tell me where on a project you saw direction being set, and most importantly, how effective was it? Also, dare I say, maybe one that wasn't done well. What was something you kind of go, man, that project just didn't have clear-cut direction or vision, and that set us back. So talk as a group, and once again, I want you to talk about one project that went well and didn't, but get into the specifics of why. What held us back? So talk amongst yourselves and not